Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Cardboard. In this episode, we are going to take a deep dive on The Abyss. As always, like and subscribe. Leave a comment below whether you like the video or not. We like to read them. We like to respond occasionally when Cory's in the mood. But he's very active to be responding, reaching out if there are questions and stuff like that. And we like hearing from you all. Definitely. So without further ado, we are going to jump into The Abyss. Cory, if you'd like to introduce this game to everybody and kind of tell us what it's about.
Yeah, so The Abyss, on the box here, it says it plays 2 to 4 players in about 45 minutes. Definitely a quicker playing game. Came out, I think, around 2013, 2014, so it is an older game, but just got a second reprinting soon, or more recently. So I think you'll be seeing it hit store shelves again here soon. And it's a very simple card game that's got a board to it, but at the heart of it, it just is mainly a card game. There are basically 3 different things going on. You've got a top part to the board, a middle section, and a bottom section to the board. And on your turn, you can choose one of the 3 things to do. The top section is you are splaying out these cards. I'll use some of these cards as an example, and they come in the form of a deck here. And you can basically try to gather these cards by laying out one at a time. And as you lay more and more out, they get more and more expensive for the players around the table. But eventually, you can acquire one of them for free for yourself. So basically, you're trying to gather these hand of cards to pay for, what are these, the lords at the bottom?
Yes.
To essentially get victory points by the end of the game. And the second option here, too, is whatever cards are left laid out from whoever didn't take those cards, they're put down into their respective piles based on the colors. So these are just kind of building up and getting into larger and larger stacks. And as an option on your turn, you can just simply take an entire stack of cards. You know what color cards they are based on the different piles here, or the different symbols on the board also. But you can try to acquire those to get a larger hand of cards to give you more options at acquiring these lords at the bottom. Like we said, the last third option you can do is acquire these lords at the bottom, and they have these different costs to them. You've got like these bubbles near the top, and then you also have a number cost. So the total number cost is based on the cost of these little cards here. So you need a total value of whatever is shown on the card or higher. So this one, for example, is 8. And then you have these bubbles that are above the number. In this case, there's 2 bubbles, one of which has a suit color to it. And that all that says is basically so because it's the 2 bubbles, you need 2 different suits of cards to pay for this lord. And it has to be exactly 2 suits of cards. So in this instance, it's green and yellow, which is legal because one of them has to be yellow. And they have to equal a value of 8 or higher for the
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, for the numerical value. So if you had that, for example, in your hand, you could buy this lord and put it in front of you. So the different lords give you different things. Like, for example, this one just gives you 10 points at the end of the game. Some of the other ones not only give you points, but they also give you keys as well. And the keys to the kingdom are very important because that'll get you these different kingdom tiles that are shown here at the bottom of the board. Immediately when you acquire 3 keys, exactly 3 keys, you get to take one of these kingdoms in front of you, and you have to spend the keys basically by, let's say I had these 3 lords in front of me, by covering them up, and you no longer get the ability of the card in front of you. So let me see if I can show that here. So all these are giving you like inherent abilities throughout the rounds, but if you get 3 of them, you are covering them up, and then you are getting the victory point bonus that's shown on the bottom of the kingdom tile at the end of the game for endgame scoring. So
it's typically a good trade-off that we don't necessarily have the time in this video to go through what all of these powers for some of these lords are, but some of them are powerful. Like, for example, the treasurer, for you, the cost of recruiting lords is reduced by 2. So that's really good. But once you, like you said, have acquired the 3 keys, you got to cover up those powers, but then you get 2 points for each of your politician lords, that's one of the factions, plus 6 victory points. That's a lot of victory points.
Yeah.
So it's a good trade-off, but then it is a trade-off. So you're kind of hampering yourself at the same time that you're scoring a lot more victory points. And then it's the first one to acquire 7 lords. Then that triggers the end game. Then you count up your victory points, and whoever has the most wins.
Yeah. My first pro with the game is the balancing act that you're playing with this game. Acquiring certain lords that maybe don't have keys, so you're not triggering them too soon, or some of the lords that do have keys, you want to pop those off at the correct time so you're not covering up their abilities at an inopportune moment. So I really like the balancing act between that, and the game plays pretty quickly too, so it can end in a heartbeat. I mean, you could have maybe only 3 or 4 lords in front of you, and the player to your left just got their 7th, and you weren't expecting it. So there's a kind of a cool ebb and flow to this game.
I see what you did there. My first pro of this is how the economy works for acquiring the cards. Is, each round is one person is kind of the house, and then as they're revealing cards that you can subsequently try to buy, you'd be paying the house, you'd be paying that player, so they are gaining your resources, which are pearls, and for audio reasons, we're not going to take out the pearls because they clatter everywhere. Yep. Yeah. But then everybody has that opportunity where other people would be paying them in order to acquire these cards. Or if nobody is, buying cards, then you can kind of take your time and pick what resource is going to be good for you to try to build your hand to buy some of these lords. And then everything else gets scrapped, and then you have that opportunity, if you want to, instead of start doing that top option where you are kind of auctioning off.
Yeah.
It's not a straight auction, but it's, this is the card, do you want to pay for it? And then it goes around the circle. Or you can just decide to pick up a pile like that if you want to kind of speed rush. I really like that economy aspect of it. I thought that that's a really creative way to get people resources.
That's really neat, because it is kind of a play on an auction, like what Jurch said, where you're kind of pushing the cards out maybe intentionally to get people to purchase cards from you for that higher value of pearls, and or just fishing for the correct card that you need.
See what you did there?
I'm not trying to do that, but it's a really neat balance between that. If it gets to the end of the track here, you automatically get a pearl and you have to take the last card, so that's kind of a bonus too. But it's a real neat balance between pearls and whether or not just to take a huge stack of cards. Another thing you need to be conscious of too is, as you're fishing for more and more cards, the more players that pass those cards, including yourself, the more these stacks are getting larger and larger and becoming more valuable to your opponents. So I really like that part of the game too.
So it's not necessarily a pushing your luck, but it's pushing kind of the economy, and then where it could be giving other people down the road more valuable options.
Yeah.
And then to be purchasing lords, which I really love the artwork on this too.
Oh yeah,
it's mesmerizing for some of these. I know even the small little cards, how these look really nice, but then the lords, like it looks fantastic, and it's really fun to look at. Everything is laid out and easy to see, that you can see who has keys on them, who does not.
Yeah.
You can easily read the powers and all that stuff. It's a really visually a great game to be looking at.
Yeah, for such a simple card game, they did an awesome job with trying to pull some theme into it to have that appeal. And the board presence too, it would really grab people as they're walking by and be like, well, what game is this? It really looks that gorgeous. And the artwork does make it seem like we're all under the sea here. Under the sea. And just everything from the different color mages too, and what they're good at doing. Like, these are the lords. This is like a mage, so they made it look like a mage, and like the political people have their political attire on, and just everything ties so nicely together. Another thing I wanted to mention about playing the cards out at the top is we don't have one of the components shown at the sideboard for the monster track.
Yes.
But that is another element to this game that is a weaker part of the game for some people, or some of the reviews I've read, but for me it's okay. It's definitely one of the weaker parts of the game. But as you are turning over cards, there might be a monster card that turns up, and simply all that does is you have the option of taking the reward next to the monster token in the current spot it is on the track, or you can move it down a spot on the track and forego that card to continue revealing cards, and as that token goes down on the track, the rewards get better and better. So it's kind of another part of push your luck with that board.
That actually is a push your luck. And when we were playing through it, I didn't see much value in that component of it, because even the rewards weren't game changing. It was either kind of some of those bonus tokens where you could be getting 2, 3, or 4 points, which is something, or keys. as you pushed it way far down.
Yeah.
So that seemed like it made an impact, but I think you mentioned that they redid that for an expansion.
Yes. Yep.
Which, by the way, we don't have, so we'd only speculate on how well it actually plays.
I really think we should revisit this game in another review in the future with the expansion, whether it's the first or both expansions, because there is 2 expansions for the game. But in the first expansion, they address that board, that monster board, completely. They say, take it, throw it in the trash. Here's a brand new board and a brand new mechanisms to play with, and it completely changes the game. And I hear for a lot of people, it changes it for the better. This game is just highly elevated by that, and I know a little bit about how that works, and it sounds pretty interesting, where it's not just either take a token or take a key, take the reward, and that's it. It's you're trying to fight monsters and actually do some damage to them and roll some dice and just add a little bit more complexity, but also a little less push your luck. So that's kind of cool.
So click the link on the screen now to go to our future video once we get the expansion and we review it there.
There you go.
That link will not work until we actually play it and make that video. So.
Yeah, so we're just reviewing the base game here. But yeah, it's fine. That track is fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a con. It was not something that really factored into my calculations for how I wanted to play my turn.
Yeah.
So.
And something we're alluding to that you need to be aware of when purchasing this game is it really is just a card game with a board. Essentially, it is a nice, elegant, simple card game with 1 of 3 options on your turn. Plays very quickly. But if that is the style game you're looking for, I think it does it really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting into more pros. Did you have any more pros?
Going back to what you said at the beginning is when you have enough keys that you have to cover up those powers, that you lose those powers. I like that trade-off because when we were playing, there were some powers that were much better than others, or at least in the ways that we were playing the game. But then you have to sacrifice that as you are progressing to try to win the game. Or you do some serious gymnastics where you're not taking any keys, and then you're losing out on these kingdoms, which can be very helpful. That you do have to get rid of those powers. So it's kind of almost like downshifting. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about this as like a race, you have to downshift and get rid of some of these powers in order to be acquiring more points to further you towards victory.
Yeah.
I really like that push and pull of it.
Yeah.
And because we've only played the game a few times, we don't have a good enough rhythm on how much to like downshift or when to do it or things like that. So I think that's a really interesting and important element to it. Do you have any other pros that you'd want to mention at this point?
I like the varying strategies in this game. They're not too complicated, but it's also a game that'll benefit once you know each and every of the cards.
Yeah.
Know what the cards do. You don't have to read the text any longer. As you become more familiar with what they do, I think in playing with the same group of people, I think that'll really benefit you with the strategy in this game. But getting into the cons of the game, I guess that's kind of one of the cons though too.
Yeah.
You do need to play this game quite often and become familiar with it to the point where you're comfortable knowing what each of the cards do. Because, if your opponents are taking cards to their side of the table and you're kind of taking your cards, it is a little bit hard to read exactly which each of them do. And you can't really strategize around it if you're not paying attention to everybody's cards.
Yeah, but in these powers, we're all kind of helping each other, remembering, oh no, you have to pay 2 extra for that one or this.
Yeah.
So it did slow it down a little bit, but it didn't like hinder.
Right.
And there was only one of these Lord powers that I thought actually bothered me, and that's the one where everybody else's cost 2 extra. Everybody else's Lord costs 2 extra. So that was kind of a con for me, is it felt like that one was much stronger than most of the other powers.
Yeah.
Granted, in one of the games we played, I was able to combo 2 Lord powers, so I was able to acquire 3 in one turn, which normally you can only acquire 1. So I was able to acquire 3 in one turn and, speed rush to the end to win the game. But that was just a happenstance that it came out in that order.
And you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of that card and that it exists within the game itself. And there's some other cards that limit your hand size, so you can't just sit there stacking up on all these cards to, pop off multiple Lords at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's none that's like overpowering. It's just when it was that one where everybody else's were costing 2 more, it's like, okay, then I'm not able to get a Lord because I need to wait for a 3 jellyfish. And, Kaler just bought the 3 jellyfish, so now I'm... I got to wait for a 4 clamshell. So that one seemed like it made it a little sluggish. But I totally understand it. It just, that kind of stuck out and bothered me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any of the Lord powers that kind of bothered you, or is that just kind of a me thing?
Not really. I kind of like some imbalances within game design because it doesn't make the game... it sounds dumb, but I like when a game isn't perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
And when everybody is aware that a game isn't perfectly balanced, because then you can play toward that. And you can kind of gang up on the person who does get that imbalanced power.
Yeah.
Or know when to not gang up on somebody. It provides a little bit more strategy in that side of it.
Unbalanced doesn't mean unfair.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't mind it too much.
Yeah. The another kind of con I have, and this is kind of goofy, but your currency is pearls. And your little cups that you have them with, I don't know if anybody saw our live playthrough of it, but it's very an annoying kind of little clinking sound. And some people have fine motor skill issues, like John. He really had a difficult time grabbing the right amount of pearls.
Or pass me a pearl and you just bounce it across the table like we're playing beer pong or something.
Yes, but we're not. So then you have to fly off the table to grab the. So it's on theme, and they're good quality pearls. But it just that kind of, it was a little. It wasn't jarring, but it was kind of a con. I don't know if there's any way to really make that better, so I'm not going to complain about it or say that it hindered my experience.
It was kind of too cutesy with the theme.
Yeah, but I think that as opposed to if it was just tokens that were just like 2-dimensional pearls, I'm fine with it being that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it being that 3-dimensional like that. That was fine. I just thought that was, there were times when, then John would try to bounce them into your cups and, then it takes away from the game.
And John's not here, so we can talk about him all we want.
We can rag on him all we want. Yeah. He was the worst at that game. God, John's the worst.
Yes, yeah. One thing I did want to mention too that you'll notice if you have the first edition of the game versus the second edition of the game is the cups used to be black, and now in the second edition they're clear. And I liked the thought they put into making the cups clear, so you at a glance you can see what other players have.
The pearls they had. Yep.
Yeah, I did like that part of it, but yeah, the pearls are pretty annoying.
Yeah. So do you have any real cons to this game?
Not much. I mean, it didn't overstay its welcome. It did what it set out to do. I guess my biggest con would just be that monster track. It was a little bit too push your luck for me. I tend to like more games that have more strategy. Yeah. And if they're not going to have strategy, I like tactical strategy. Yeah. And that kind of pushed the push your luck button a little too hard for me.
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought the card play and the way the economy worked so well.
Yes.
And the design is so the fat is so trimmed down on this that it just makes for a nice one solid product.
It's a very fluid game.
Yeah. 1 of 3 options on your turn. Go ahead and do it. Quickly do it. Go.
You didn't see what I did there.
What? Fluid. I just didn't.
Don't worry. It's water under the bridge. So I guess we can go to our final ratings here. Do you need a moment to compose yourself? Are you ready to give your rating?
No. Yeah, I'm ready. Am I going to go first?
Yeah.
So yeah, the game really surprised the heck out of me. It is an older game, but it definitely does not look like an older game. The artwork is gorgeous. The board presence is gorgeous. The way the cards work together is just so elegant and clean and smooth. It's a nice little light card game that disguises itself as a bigger board game. Mm-hmm. And if you know that getting into it, if you know that it's mainly just a card game, I think it really will surprise you. For me, I'm starting off with a 7.5 out of 10. Not bad. It's kind of in that average range just because some of the push your luck sides to it felt a little bit, like I said, a little bit too push your luck. I don't like the old roll and move monopolies of the world where you just roll the die and you get to see where you land and just kind of that random luck. And I think with the expansion that fixes that monster track, this rating definitely would go up. But 7.5 still isn't bad. I think with more plays and the more familiar I get with how everything works too, I think the rating definitely could go up.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, especially with the more playthroughs, that this was a game that once we played it the first time, was like, okay, let's shuffle up, deal, and play again. And it's one of those games I think you could really do this with. I'm going to give it an 8. And it's a fluid 8. Like, it could go up a little bit well. Yeah. It might buoy a little bit. But I liked the mechanics on the economy of it, on the being able to acquire the resources, either pushing your luck or taking it from a big stack of them. I liked the Lords and the way that progresses you towards the finish line, and it does play pretty quick. Yeah, it's a pretty quick playthrough. Once you get it set up and you know what's going on, it is pretty quick. So it's an 8. I really enjoyed playing it with you guys, and there's a lot of kind of dynamics going between players as well. So there's a lot of player interaction with it. So it was very fun, and I would recommend it to groups of casual gamers too. Yeah. That it's not a very deep game.
But it is gamery as well.
Yes, it's gamer. It's gamery. It's got good theme, but it's not like heavy theme, and it's not too complex that you couldn't just bring it to the table, learn how to play it, and then really enjoy playing it. So it's a solid 8 for me.
Yeah, and something we've been talking about in a lot of our videos recently is kind of the bookend games, and I think this kind of almost fits within that 45 minutes where you can start the night with it or you can finish the night with it, and it plays so elegantly and smooth and quick that there's enough meat to the game where you feel like you're actually playing a game.
Yes.
And you've got some strategy to it, and it feels nice and rewarding, but plays super quick. And it has a nice balance between those two things.
So we definitely recommend trying to pick it up. And if the box doesn't look exactly like this, again, it's because they're doing an interesting artistic thing where they've got different covers on it, but it is The Abyss. So take a deeper dive into that. From all of us here at Talking Cardboard, enjoy.